Hello, and welcome back. This is the First Issue Club podcast, a weekly podcast where we cover what? First issues. That's right, you guessed it. I don't need to say it to you, but here I am saying it to you. Anyway, it's me, Greg. I'm here with Mike, Budget King, and Caitlin. And we're here to talk to you about two deliciously wonderful books called S.W.O.R.D, but there's periods in between the words, so we'll get into that. And then Homesick Pilots, and that's anybody's game of what that's about, but we'll tell you about it here in the episode. Before we get into the books, we got some comic book news. Before we get into the episode, we have some comic book news. Recently, rumors have come out about the new Spider-Man 3 movie. Have you guys seen this stuff yet?
No.
Yeah, well, you're putting on your Jay Leno impression.
Have you seen it? So it's been recently rumored that Daredevil from the MCU television show is being contracted to come onto the movie.
No fucking way.
Also, it's been rumored that both of these Spider-Mans from the other Sony Spider-Man properties.
I'd heard that.
And so with the other news that Dr. Ock and Electro from those movies are coming into Spider-Man 3, how are you guys feeling about this movie? Does it seem maybe too bloated? Do you think they're trying to capture the magic from Spider-Verse?
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to do it.
Well, here's my thing, is that Spider-Verse opened the door in people's brains to the concept of this.
Yeah.
But I'll say at the same time, that movie did it so effortlessly that if you would have told me, even in like an animated movie, they were going to dip their toe into Spider-Verse, I would have said, nah, it's going to be terrible and convoluted, so confusing to people who don't read comics. Mm-hmm. It was the complete opposite.
Oh, yeah.
It was like fun, didn't take itself seriously when it didn't need to, but told like a story that we cared about with characters we cared about. Mm-hmm. This, they could very well do the same sort of thing, but they're also going to be rehashing people and characters that I do not like. Like, I thought Jamie Foxx's Electro was horrible. Uh-huh. I was okay with like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, but at the same time, there's certain aspects of those characters that I'm like, why rehash this? Like, it'd be a fun wow moment if I didn't know about it. If I didn't know about it and went into the theater, it would blow my fucking mind.
Yeah,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
you
Now
don't
that I-
leak
Now that I know about it,
Yeah.
I don't know that it's going to like make me as crazy as it would have otherwise.
It's going to have to be small bit cameos. Like, because we know Doctor Strange is going to be in this movie. So he's either going to send...
The title is Multiverse of Madness, right?
Right. So he's either going to send Peter Parker, Tom Holland, through these portals to find something. Mm-hmm. And as fun nods, we're going to get moments from those other movies where Peter's just like, oh my God, another Spider-Man. Oh my God, another Spider-Man. And this is going to be like quick hits like that. Because if you get 2.5 hours of so many fucking webs, excuse the pun, of stories going, it's going to get confusing way too quickly.
Well, maybe, do we know the contracts already set up for how many movies are signed on for Tom Holland moving forward? Because if this is literally like, hey, we're going to have some fun in the multiverse and introduce you to that idea, but this story's actually going to take place over the course of a movie or two, then that maybe makes more sense to do such a grandiose idea. But to do it in one movie and be done with it kind of seems like an unearned, crazy wackiness moment. You know what I mean?
I feel like, well, so I think Tom Holland's young enough where they'll have him for a few more movies.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of already setting up a Young Avengers type thing with the Hawkeye TV show, and the Scarlet Witch TV show is introducing her two children, Wiccan and Speed. So we're getting kind of this shift in the Marvel universe of they're going younger so they can have these actors for longer. So it would make sense that possibly this new Spider-Man 3 movie introduces Miles for the newer audiences.
You're totally that. Why didn't that even occur to me? That's like probably the big news here is that Miles has got to show up.
Yeah. Well, if they don't, they've wasted an opportunity.
Oh, totally, yeah.
So I think that's what they're doing. They're introducing us in this movie and probably Scarlet Witch a little bit of different universes in the MCU and what the status quo is going to be going forward.
I almost wonder if they know as soon as they introduce Miles that people are going to care so much less about Tom Holland Spider-Man that they have to like really bide their time with when they introduce that character. Is it too confusing to have two mainline Spider-Mans at once in the MCU?
I don't know. I think I have the bandwidth for it, but I also think that I wouldn't be so quick to just like dismiss Tom Holland, what he's done with Peter Parker.
I mean, we love his Peter Parker, but I feel like as soon as they drop Miles Morales, everyone's going to be like, fuck yeah, this is what I wanted.
Well, and they have the benefit of Tom Holland is going to be essentially the same age as Miles Morales.
Yeah, that's
in
kind
the
of
movie.
weird, right?
In the comic books, Peter Parker was way older.
Mentor sort of character.
And so now they could be really a duo, like a team up, which would be fantastic. And it could project a couple more movies just on that aspect alone. So I think they have a couple of options to work on that would have Tom Holland being Spider-Man for, the next 5 years probably.
Do we know any villains in this? Like, what's the... We've got no idea what the crux of the story is or why they're jumping into the multiverse?
Not that I know of. This is just me, my hot take. It's got to be Mephisto. This is how it all gets taken care of. Because in the end of Spider-Man 2, his identity is revealed.
Oh. You're totally right. And that's how they undid it in the comic books.
Yes.
People were so pissed about Brand New Day and like that whole setup in the comics.
And so an easy way to...
Why would you do it in the movie if people were mad about it in the comics?
Piss off a whole other group of people.
Because they undid the whole Mary Jane relationship in the comics. Everyone, like, remember they got married, and then all of a sudden it was like, none of that ever happened.
I think they
I
maybe
do
will
remember
learn
that.
from that.
Yeah.
And just make sure that everyone forgets that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
If they team up as a duo, they should call it Spider-Men.
That's what I was thinking too.
2 Spider-Man and a baby.
Well, I will see it no matter what.
Yeah.
The trailer could look so bad, I will still go see it opening night.
It's a weird season for comics right now. It's like this in-between holiday season, so they're doing weird shit with comic books.
Well, yeah. I mean, school's on break.
Yes.
Comics want to go on break. So they kind of throw their last darts at the wall towards the end of the year.
One of those darts was a crossover comic book with Sandman and Lock and Key. Mm-hmm. DC just said, hey, you know what? Let's put some of our independent books together in a blender, see what comes out.
It's a DC book?
It's because they don't have Vertigo anymore.
So it's a black label?
Yep.
Ooh.
So, I don't know. It was a 0. If you're a fan of one of those things, are you a fan of both of them? I don't know.
It's a numbered 0. That's not the rating you gave it.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I gave it a 0.
It's a cold 0.
I don't know. I think it's maybe just like a grab to get both of those fan bases interested in one book at the same time, like one fell swoop, just like
Yeah.
And I
everybody pick it up.
And I think Joe Hill and Neil Gaiman are two of the bigger names in comic book writing world, and those are their worlds, and now they're coming together. So
Oh, were they both still the writers?
I think
Did they
so.
collaborate
Yeah,
together?
I think they're
that makes
affiliate-
this make a lot more sense.
Okay, okay,
Because
okay.
I looked at it and I just, in my brain, assumed that they just given it to someone else to like do this
Some DC underling.
fun offshoot thing that I was just like, this is for nobody. Like, why are you putting time and effort towards this thing when you could an original idea? Like, it takes, you know how long it takes to draw a comic book? And we're drawing this?
Yeah.
Like, that blows my mind sometimes when I walk past some crossover things.
So it looks like it's more of a Lock and Key book that happens in the Sandman universe because Joe Hill is the author.
Okay.
So still,
I do
though,
know a few people who are big fans of both, so maybe it's got more reach than.
I mean, people said it was crazy when they combined peanut butter and chocolate, but maybe this is the
But
kind of
but in the
amalgamation
end,
we need.
egg on their face.
Oh, man, I got peanut butter all over my chocolate. It's ruined.
Oh, you got your Lock and Key in my Sandman universe.
Dang it.
Get your locks out of my jelly.
There certainly are people who
All
are
these
stands.
keys and all this sand.
There's certainly people who are stands for certain publishers. And if you're like a Vertigo freak, it's like totally makes sense.
Totally, yeah.
It's just like if you're a Marvel head and you're crossing over. Well, it's not quite that because Marvel's a shared universe, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, totally.
It's more believable to cross things over because you're sticking in the same family.
I think they're trying to cross over onto the crossover.
Oh, they're trying to make their play.
They're trying to cross the crossover.
They're
Good luck.
So thirsty for Donnie. They're saying, "Notice me.
We can cross over too, Donnie.
I wore the skimpiest costume to the Halloween bash.
I'm a sexy
See me, Donnie?
stapler.
See me from across the room, Donnie?"
The other thing that DC did was
I think you're thirsty for Donnie.
No, who told you that? That's not true.
Okay, sure.
DC released a lot of Fat Boys this week. They were hardbound books, and one of them was
Is that what you call books now? Fat boys?
Well, yeah.
They
thick
weren't
boys.
thick boys. That's what I'm looking for. Thick boys.
I thought-
Thick boys are big comics. Fat boys are just hardbound books now.
Well, we're establishing how to codify it. Okay, so it's going to be a work in progress.
Okay, sure.
a thick boy.
They weren't hardback books. They were like, well, they kind of look like trades,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
They're like a little thinner than a normal trade.
Okay.
And they had a bunch of them. And I don't know if they're trying to capitalize on people trying to buy more than a floppy, right? One of them that they did was DC's Very Merry Multiverse, which got a little bit of buzz because it has a first appearance by Kid Quick from The Flash from Future State. Do you care?
Well, we all have takes on this.
Yeah, we do. Do we taking turns?
Yes, because I think they're both valid. Go.
Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah.
I'm in the comic book shop today. I've just finished checking out. My buddy Budget King walks into the comic shop and I say, "Hey," and he goes, "Oh, what did you get? What are we picking up this week?" Immediately reaches for this comic and goes, "This is buzzing. We should cover this." And I say, "I don't give two shits about this book. Like, you couldn't pay me to buy this. It's a fucking event anthology style book. Like, I don't care.
Based on the season of Christmas?
A one shot that like doesn't lead into anything else except for like that they mention a character from Future State. No, thank you. That's like money down the drain to me.
And the way you said it is absolutely right. If you're going into this book thinking that way, this book isn't for you. This book is very much a tie-in to DC Death Metal, which leads into the new event happening in January and February called Future State.
See, I didn't exactly know that Death Metal and Future State were connected. Like the continuity flows from one into the other.
So at the end of Death Metal, it's like the new rebirth.
Okay.
This is DC going into their their Generation 5 iPhone of new stories and stuff.
But the actual climax of Death Metal spurs the events that cause Future State.
Yes, well, presumably, yeah.
Okay.
So Future State is basically set in the future, and we get kind of like it could be a what if scenario, but it's still like a fun event of just where our heroes are at 10 years in the future.
Let me throw some of these stories at you that are in this book that you passed up that I have.
Great. Oh, I can't wait to not give a third
Anyway,
shit.
wait,
Add
before you do
another
that,
one.
let me just say, if you've been following the DC Death Metal and you're going to be invested in Future State, this is probably a fun book to read. But if you're like...
Oh, no, let me caveat that.
Go ahead.
4 pages of this are probably pretty fun to read. I bet most of it's just Christmas bullshit.
Now, just hang on. Okay, now we really do need to know some of the titles in here.
Ooh, yeah,
How
we
about
gotta take care of this.
A Very Lobo Hanukkah featuring Lobo?
Makes sense in the title. Yeah, he'd be in there.
Yeah.
Pass.
Okay. What about Bizarro Love Holiday?
Double pass.
Who's writing these?
Calvin Ellis wrote that one. What about this one? Have Yourself a Bizarro Little Christmas. Looks like
2 bizarro Christmas stories. How about that?
Come on.
Okay, not helping my case here.
It's a Horrible Life featuring
Lobo?
Harley Quinn.
Harley Quinn.
I haven't gotten you with any of these. Oh, you're going to love this one. 'Twas the Night with Booster Gold. One of your favorites.
I love Booster
Yeah,
Gold.
that's a
I would
good
read that one.
Okay, so 1 of 5, you should have bought the book.
Nah.
Oh boy. Okay, so you dodged a bullet. Well done.
2 Bizarro books.
Where's Flash in that?
Right, where would Kid Quick show up?
Yeah, let's see.
I call him Flash. Kid Quick.
Okay.
He's Flash.
Quick. Kid Quick.
He might be in The Night of the Magi, featuring the League of Shadows.
You didn't even mention that
Yeah.
book title.
Oh, sorry. Or he might be in Prez Ricard's Magical Sci-Fi Desolate Souls Club Holiday Special featuring Prez.
Now this I'm in on.
Yeah.
That's fucking
Sweet.
crazy. That's a great title.
Yeah.
If you would have led with that one, I would have been like, oh, regret. That one's awesome.
I can't even identify the Kid Quick story by the titles that are in there.
What
Terrible
happened?
hype man for this
What
book.
happened to Impulse? Wasn't he going to be like the next Flash at some point? That was a DC comic.
Yeah, things happened.
Okay.
Things happen.
Flash is hard, man.
Yeah, Flash is
I
hard.
didn't know Lobo was Jewish though. That's a new one.
I didn't know either. I thought he was agnostic.
This is his Jewish coming out.
Maybe he
His
learns
first
the
faith
meaning of
appearance.
Hanukkah.
Yeah. This is a bar mitzvah. So that's the news hit.
Yeah.
A bar mitzvah at Hanukkah.
And much
A bar
like,
mitzvah for Hanukkah.
and much like comics at the end of the year, we're also scraping the bottom of the barrel. So we're just here to hang out and seal out this year with a kiss. So thanks for staying with us, and let's get this podcast started. Alrighty, first up on the episode, we have Homesick Pilots out on Image Comics, written by Dan Waters, who you may know from Coffin Bound and Limbo. We also have Casper Wingard from Paradiso, Limbo, some Star Wars titles, and Angelic. What is this book about? You may be asking. Well, I'm glad you asked, because it's about a story of a young woman who's in a punk band that gets taken over by a house and then has to go on a treasure hunt for ghosts.
What a weird, interesting story.
And a title that doesn't invite you into that story.
No, this is a terrible title for a book, but a fantastic book.
100% agree.
Well, but she is in some ways a homesick. I mean, it does identify them as
Yeah.
kids just because it's the name of their band and isn't like listing out the synopsis.
Well, and she's like piloting the house in a way.
Right.
The house like turns into a mech thing. The haunted house
Yeah.
Yeah.
turns into I guess,
Amazing
a
premise.
Zord.
Yeah.
Is that what they're called?
Yes, it is. Did it hurt to say that?
And the other
Yeah, kind of.
And when she's like
My Zord hurts.
being piloted by it, she looks dope.
She does look dope. The other thing that I get a little bit angry with is when comic book writers dip into writing about music.
Oh my God. Okay, we do show notes every episode.
Mm-hmm.
One of my first show note is punk talk ... Budget King approved.
And
Yes.
okay.
Okay, they handled it
All
right.
right. All
They
right.
How did
handled it.
they handle it that was right?
I think that they talked about thrash metal in a way that it was like, oh, this is generic. I'm more here to just be in an abandoned punk venue. It's more about being here and like being dirty than it is about the music. That is thrash music to me.
Yeah.
That I felt
Well, they
like
didn't like reference certain songs that were played or certain bands to like give you the idea that they have cred to be talking this way. So that helped me not
here's-
get totally removed.
Here's okay.
You take the floor.
I was just gonna say, here's the cred that I know that these people were in a band, because another band was playing, another band was trashing them
Yes.
for being a terrible band, and that's what you do when you're in a band. When someone else is playing, you just fucking trash them.
Not as good as us.
I thought that they hit the nail on the head on punk rock cred.
They mentioned Fugazi.
Yeah.
I was like,
It's set in 94, so that makes sense.
oh, I didn't realize it
I
was set in
did.
1994.
I almost thought about that when they
Yeah.
referenced that, but I was like,
That
I'm
makes
not
so much more
totally
sense
sure.
now. I also appreciate when they're watching the punk band and it's introduced to us initially over where you would normally see lyrics. They put like contrived trite punk lyrics,
Yeah.
Yep.
like as like a quote thing, and like they were redacted almost. And I was like, I love that because it's so hard to write any song stuff in a comic and have it translate is not corny. Lyrics are corny.
Yep.
Yeah. Out of context, lyrics are fucking corny.
Yes.
So yeah, I thought this was great. I mean, I really instantly kind of connected with this because I've been to these kinds of shows before. I think we've all been to these kinds of shows where we're just like, I could probably die here at any second, and the cops will just come in here and just bust it up. But it was great because you think you're getting this one story of like gutter punks trying to find a home and battling out in this band scene, and it quickly turned into this like weird horror show of like a haunted house that is like kidnapping people.
Can be piloted
Yeah.
by like the kidnapper. Or it honestly, like I had very low expectations for this book, and it blew me the fuck away.
It's not just kidnapping people either, because I think that would be interesting, but more of along the lines of just like a finite, like haunted house tale. It's like it needs to be complete again by finding these artifacts, like you mentioned, the treasure hunt. And I don't know if it's going to let go of her once it gets those, but it's very much like using these people that it kidnaps as means to an end, which is interesting. It's got that sentience, that hauntedness.
It's interesting to me that it seems like the two of them had this positive symbiotic relationship, but it also perceives like the good and bad in other people. Like there were assholes that made their way into this house that the house chewed up and spit out.
Oh God, brutally.
But for whatever reason, it like saved her friends, or spared her friends rather, and then really took a liking to her, and kind of imbued her with some powers or whatever.
Yeah.
And this is a rare comic book where I like never get this, where I'm either story I would take a full comic book on. If it were just the bands battling in this small town and like figuring out where to play their next punk show, I'd take that. If it was this horror house going collecting lost artifacts as a mech, I would take that.
Yeah.
So it's the perfect PB&J.
There was this one panel of the house cut, like the cut house that had several floors, and I lost my mind over the way that looked. It was so cool.
Yeah.
Broke format complete. I mean, like, you can, how many comics have we read? And how many times does something happen where you're just like, I've never seen this before in a comic book, especially in regard to paneling. Like it took my brain a second to realize what was going on and what order I was supposed to read it in. But once I put it together, I was like, wow, I love this.
So right. I didn't even know where to start reading, but I was like, oh shit, it's breaking like rules in all the best ways.
And it just fit with what the story was.
It like, I like it didn't hold your hand. It was just like, the comic presented it and there's just like, figure it out.
I also
see how these stories connect and where they meet.
This book would get an easy A+ if it had a different name.
Yeah. They did this thing in the book about describing what a haunted house is that I had never seen before in my entire life. It's like the circle theory of just like a haunted house is only scary when you're inside of it, because it's contained. None of the bad shit in the haunted house can get out. And I was like, holy fuck, I'd never like broken that down before and thought about it. And then it throws the theory of, what if the haunted house could get up and move?
Come to you.
And come to you. You're like, holy fuck, that is horrifying. And so I thought that was just like a real unique take on kind of a tired horror theme. So that panel alone just blew me away.
Job well done. Sneaking in the end of the year. This could have easily made it in one of our end of the year awards, I feel like, in somewhere. We don't know how well it's going to go, but
maybe in contention for next year. We'll lump it in.
this is the weird award season that happens where it's like this release won't get covered next year. We're not going to look back and be like, oh, what technical 2020 books?
Yep.
And it's not going to get covered in our end of year. It's just a good book, and I hope you find it.
Well, I think it's safe to say we all love this book, and you should go definitely check it out. And we're moving on to another book. And now we are covering S.W.O.R.D. That spells sword from Marvel Comics, written by Al Ewing. If you don't know what he's been writing, let me tell you, we can only find them when they're dead. Empire, Immortal Hulk, basically all the bomb shit on Marvel right now. But who drew it, Greg? Well, I'll tell you that. Give me a second. It's Valerio Spidey, who's also been working on Empire and other various Marvel titles. Guys, it's safe to say this is a Marvel affair. They really kept it in-house with this
I like
one.
that you don't need us for any of this.
I've gone slowly insane over this year, 2020, and the year of our Satan. Well, Greg, you're probably wondering, what's S.W.O.R.D about? Well, it's quite simple, my friends. It's X-Men in space. Did I get it right?
You did.
Did you want to answer yourself, Greg?
I did, Greg. You did a good job.
One thing I wanted to kind of start this conversation with is who do you think this book is for? The conversation is interesting to me because there's so many X-Men books at this point. This one seems pretty niche.
You have to have a working knowledge of what's been going on. You don't have to have intimate knowledge because I do not. Probably more than some that haven't picked up any of the previous like Power 10 or but it's not requiring that extensive knowledge of you to kind of understand sort of the scope of what they're trying to do and how neat it is that they're taking mutant technology into space and to other worlds and planets and not just going to stick around on just old Earth anymore.
Yeah, I think it's for two audiences too. I think it rewards the Ten of Swords people who followed it, and it's like it's all done, but now you have a book called S.W.O.R.D, so it's kind of come to something or whatever. And I also think that Al Ewing is the master of writing another genre into comics. So I think Immortal Hulk is a horror book in like a classic Frankenstein horror way. Maybe the best ever done version of that. And then this is 100% like Star Trek hard sci-fi in X-Men.
Yeah.
And so it's for people who know Al Ewing and know how good a writer is and want to like dance into that world.
Yeah, this is full-on hard sci-fi. This is going to be for the hyper nerds.
That's kind of what I thought. My brain immediately went to people who can't get enough that want like more. We're opening the doors to a whole other world, right? Mm-hmm. If there's stories that can't be contained in one nation of Krakoa between the mutants, as interesting as it is with the inner workings and politics and world affairs and how they relate to Earth, is there room to just say into the stars and into the future, there's a whole other realm and world of adventure out there. Typically things like Alpha Flight have been like, I mean, that's like outer space Avengers kind of. Mm-hmm. Those books, in my opinion, have always been like, you're a serious nerd if you're reading Avengers in space with these like way more obscure characters than the mainline characters.
Yeah.
But I love hearing that it read as pretty accessible and can also kind of be a standalone, like, hey, fun characters with superpowers that are just going to go on space adventures.
Well, I think Marvel played it right with not using any mainline X-Men for this ship.
Besides Magneto.
Well, Magneto's not going to be on the ship the entire time. He's kind of the liaison for, I would say, a few issues to kind of, help his pet project come to fruition.
But you're right. Otherwise, no mainline.
No,
And I mean, Peeper is gonna, if nobody knows who he is, like, they're gonna stick around to see more of what Peeper's up to.
Hey, Peepers and Magneto have been buds for decades.
Old Brotherhood of Mutants character.
Mm-hmm.
There was that great moment where you can tell, like, that this one guy is getting upstaged by Peeper, and he's like, "What is happening?" So it had really good moments, like, that weren't just graphs and like all the stuff that has become kind of synonymous for me for like this world building thing for Ten of Swords, and like it was kind of a standalone in that way.
What's even funnier about this is like, let's go further with the Star Trek comparison. It's probably in the Star Trek world, it's Deep Space Nine, where it's like
Sure.
it's actually like the world within the world of it that matters.
It's the gas
And, like,
Its own little ecosystem.
yeah, and getting into the bureaucracy of like there's this monologue where I don't remember which character is basically saying like, I kind of fucked with Alpha Flight, I kind of fucked with Shield, but I like decided to switch over to S.W.O.R.D because I just liked how they do it better, which just felt like a person who actually thinks about switching jobs within their like world of job. It just felt like very bureaucratic.
Yeah. They're not as organized as I'd like, so that's why I'm here.
Oh, is that what it was? Yeah, it was something.
Well,
like
yeah,
that,
because they kept not knowing how to protect
Yeah.
the populations that they were tasked with protecting, because superheroes would just go off and do their own thing, or they couldn't get the budget that S.H.I.E.L.D. had, or
Yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, this is very much Krakoan ran. There's no government agencies. There's no, bureaucracy except the Quiet Council. So it's a lot easier to get things done.
The other thing about this book, it's thick. It's a longer book, and it has to do what every new team does, is like introduce you to the characters, introduce you to the team, introduce you to the story, but it does it in a way that's like I felt like very inviting and tongue in cheek.
Right. I love that Magneto's kind of coming to inspect the ship and see how processes are going and who's in what job role. And through his eyes, you kind of get introduced to the concept. There's a level of familiarity he has, but they still put on like a dog and pony show a little bit for him. And that really helped.
And it's a brilliant way to showcase personality in minute little things. Because not only do they get to say, here is my name, and then here's what I go by when I'm working, but also like just the way they interact with him. If they like try to kiss his boots, or if they're like, yeah, whatever, you're here, you're my boss. Like, it's just kind of a good way to get introduced to a lot of people really quickly.
So there's one part where is his name WizKid? Mm-hmm. He's like having to defend his mutant name, and he goes, "Well, did you know that Cable actually selected his name because?" And then he sees Magneto and stops, and he's like, "Oh, hello, sir." I don't actually know how Cable selected his mutant name or
don't
why. Okay. I didn't know if you guys were going to like brain bust me, because I was like, it is kind of an odd mutant name.
I think he was getting ready to dunk on Cable, and then he saw that like a higher up was in the room, or like a CEO, and he was just like, oh, maybe not the perfect time for an off-color joke.
About leadership.
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned this, but Cable is head of security.
Yeah.
On S.H.I.E.L.D.
Young Cable.
Or sorry, not S.H.I.E.L.D. S.W.O.R.D. S.W.O.R.D started as S.H.I.E.L.D. in outer space. Mm-hmm. It's like a government-run thing. Now it's straight mutant-run. They really break down the symbiotic relationship between mutants. The book gets into how a lot of the characters' powers have a higher purpose when combined. Mm-hmm. And we explore this a little bit in the early issues of Dawn of X with the Five and how they can resurrect people. And it almost seems like destiny that their powers work so intricately together to be able to resurrect people. These characters have powers that work so well together to be able to transport other people through time and space and then bring them back.
I also like that they have backups that are listed. And I almost wonder, because I think it could be interesting that, because a lot of the backups are probably more prominent figures within their society, but I almost wonder if their powers don't work as well, which is why they haven't been chosen for these groups, which is kind of an interesting, like, this is your time to shine, peepers, because they can't do what you can do in the context of what voids need to be filled in this group.
Yeah, the whole staff makeup of the ship seems to serve this higher purpose of this tool created by combining X-Men powers.
Yeah.
Which is, that as a concept alone is interesting enough to me to read a few issues.
And so gratifying to find uses for people who kind of have similar things that they can do.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Well,
to be able to kind of say, well, the overarching purpose of like having all these similar things is that now you can do this one. This is the natural evolution of the way that is going to go.
Yeah. I part of what you're referring to, I think, is that, they've got several teleporters, working together in order to achieve these
Mega teleport.
incredible, like exceed these incredible limits and like power each other further. And there are mutants that serve as like a grounding element for all of that. And what they can achieve when combined is just so fun. The paneling when they're like venturing out into outer space and some of the narration that's happening as they're doing these like big things that transcend across the universe was really fun.
When this book was announced, I thought that it was in the Ten of Swords event. And I thought that one of the swords that they were going to have to retrieve was the spaceship itself. Like, to fight with the spaceship as a sword. And
Which would be sick.
yeah. I was like, oh, that's like rad. But obviously that's not what happened, so.
Kind of. I don't know, spoilers for Ten of Swords, but Cable uses his sword as a key for the ship to like start it, and then they find out that there's a weapon of sorts on the ship that is crucial to the battle that ensues at the end of Ten of Swords.
My
So
assumption
you get that payoff.
turns
So-
reality.
Yeah.
10 points Gryffindor. Congratulations.
It's so weird to hear it not in a British accent.
And so the teacher becomes the student.
It's the other way around. But good job. A lot of great books this week, guys. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I've got a fat stack of not number one
fat
sitting right
boys.
over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fat Boys, also known as books.
Hey, we've called them thick boys. I don't know.
I got a few hard bodies.
There we go.
Got my hands on some hard bodies over there.
I like equating each, like, what are volumes? What are what are floppies?
Brick House. Is an omnibus.
Well, give us your favorite book nickname, and we'll put it up on Twitter and vote on the best one. Once again, thanks you for joining us. We're on all the social medias. We're over there on Patreon. Look us up, First Issue Club. We love you so much and hope you're having a good holiday season. Stay safe out there. We got a couple of good shows coming up with our year-end stuff and our best of, some of our favorite episodes that we do every year. So by now you've already heard that we're doing kind of like a mini show, Crosstalk. It's we're covering Donny Cates' crossover series. It's that big that we need to have a separate show just to talk about it. It really is a love letter to comic books, and Donny Cates is just fucking doing a great job at it. So check those out. They come out every Friday after a new crossover issue comes out. And thanks again for joining us here on First Issue Club. We will see you next week.